Terminology. Everybody needs to learn something about terminology. And today is about present tense. Nothing greater than the present to learn this. And present tense, and correct me if I'm wrong, has particularly surged in popularity over the years, especially in genres like contemporary fiction, thrillers, and the YA of all things. Basically, it places the character directly in the heart of the action, and it creates such a sense of intimacy or immediacy, I should say. Um, for example, The Hunger Games by Susan Collins uses present tense to heighten the intensity of Katniss' life or death. Sort of like when she wakes up, she's like, "Oh, I woke up and my fingers stretched out on the bed, and the covers are cold, and I searched for Prim, but she must have gotten up and went back to Mother's bed because today was the first day of the reaping." It's also in first person. So, what is present tense in books make your story unfold in real time? One of the greatest strengths of present tense is the immediacy and urgency it brings to the story. It's happening as you read it. In present tense, readers experience the stories as if it is unfolding right before their eyes, moment by moment, which can make every action and decision feel more intense and unpredictable. Unlike past tense, where readers know the events have already happened, present tense makes them feel as though they are in the thick of it, unsure of what will happen next. This can be especially effective in action scenes where the pace is fast or in the moment creates the high tension and intensity, where characters are making decisions that impact their future in real time. So we're going to kind of talk about that. First things first, same as the verse. Am I right? Am I right? Boom. Get it up there. Let's do it side by side. So here's a side by side, okay? Elizabeth, hey, what's up? Elizabeth walked through the garden thinking about Darcy's unexpected proposal. She remembered the awkward tension in the room. That's past tense. Present tense, same thing. Elizabeth walks through the garden thinking about Darcy's unexpected proposal. The tension still lingers in her mind, making her steps heavy. Past tense, present tense, right? If we look at this, the tone in the past tense is more reflective. Elizabeth walked through the garden thinking about Darcy's unexpected proposal. She remembered the awkward tension in the room. So that gives like a sense of contemplation. However, in the present tense version, we're experiencing the moment alongside her. The tension still lingers in her mind, right? Because you have to change it from she remembered to it is happening. She wasn't remembering, it is happening in real time. So it's immediate, it lingers in her mind. You gotta let it linger, right? So present tense allows you to be like, Thomas stands and waits. Or let's you could even do this, waiting. Thomas, let's get rid of studs. Thomas glance, waiting. Thomas took son of a wait. All right, waiting. Thomas well, actually, because waiting is the opening, so Thomas talked to his friend. Thomas Thomas looked around the room. Let's see. Waiting, Thomas looked around the room. Yeah, so my brain is going crazy here. I've been working on my epic fantasy in past tense. Waiting, Thomas looks around the room. Of course, that's a filler word, by the way. But anyway, so if I'm gonna do this, it's like waiting. Thomas looks around the room, right? Let's get really crazy with it. The walls close in, painted, right? In those shades that seem to swallow the light. Right? Maybe his fingers. Let's get him touching things. His fingers drum the edge of the chair of his chair of his chair. I think that would be better. Of his chair. Ooh, and then we could do like wrestle against silence. Right. So his fingers drum the edge of his chair, restless against the silence. All right. So, in this situation, waiting. Thomas looks around the room. You just have to get your head around it, by the way, too. You got to practice. If you specifically write in a tense, you got to practice to get your mind out of it, because my brain right here waiting, Thomas looked around the room. Like, that's my instinct, right? But it's like, it sounds weird almost. Thomas looks around the room. The walls close in, painted in dull shades that seem to swallow the light. His fingers drum the edge of his chair, restless against the silence. Now, just looking at this, I'd want to get rid of this, and I want to get rid of seems, because seems is a bad word, but it's a bad word. So Thomas, waiting. You know what? I could actually just do this. Waiting. The walls closed in around Thomas, painted in dull shades that seem. Oh, shades. That absorb. Oh no, we have swallow. That just swallow the light. His finger. Yeah, there we go. Boom. There we go. All right. Waiting. The walls close in. The walls close in around Thomas, painted in dull shades that swallow. Shades. Painted in dull shades. Swallowing the light. Fingers drum to the edge, restless against the silence. I'd probably actually do this. The walls close in around Thomas, painted in those shades, swallowing the light as he waits. All right. The reason I did that is because you also, one of the rules I'm going to get into is you don't want to like overdo ing verbs. You just don't want to. Let's see if we keep going. What do we got? Let's see. Air heavy, thick with words unsaid. Yeah, so the air heavy, thick with words unsaid, settles in to the empty corners of the office. All right. Let's see. Now let's build on the room. Let's through his perception though. So let's see. Let's build the room and dress it up. Across the room, a clock ticks with. I can't spell with a stubborn. We'll just use rhythm. Rhythm for now. Rhythm. Each second. Stretching out. Stretching into the next, echoing of the stillness. And again, of course, if I was writing this, I would definitely go back. The air heavy, thick with words unsaid. Truth settles into the empty corners of your office. Across the room. A clock ticks Across the room, a clock ticks. An old clock. Just in history. Ticks with a stubborn rhythm. March. Each second. Each second stretching. Yeah, that's stretching. Each second stretching into the next. Elevating. I just don't like the word echo. It's just sometimes when you write, you just get it out. Echoing off the stillness. Each second stretching into the next. Oh. Bouncing off the stillness. Whatever. Anyway, there you go. So that is a present tense kind of work. As you can see, some things you want to keep in mind, some takeaways is you want to avoid overusing ing. So let's see if I overuse. We have 1, 2, 3. Anyway. Okay. Now, it is common, especially on a first draft, to use a lot of ing words, but in the context of how it's used is very good. So, if it was, let's say, Thomas is running through the forest, right? Okay, his breath is catching in his throat. Whatever, A stronger version of this would probably be just go right to the present. Thomas runs through the forest. Actually, make it a little bit more. Thomas runs over hard forest floor. His breath drying in his throat. All right. So, right, his breath dry. I could even do this. His breath dry. His breath dry in his throat. Right. So, if you want to make it happen, you got to. Let me check that real quick with spell check over here. Did I spell that right? Yeah, I spelled that right. Yeah, that comma's correct. Yeah. All right. So Thomas runs over the hard forest floor, his breath, right? Thomas runs over the hard forest floor, his breath dry. Thomas. Trees. In the prison of trees scattered. Oh. In the prison of trees. Spread in the darkness. Thomas runs across the. Okay. In the prison of trees spread across the darkness. In a prison of trees spread across the darkness, Thomas runs over the hard forest floor, his breath dry in his throat. It's a long sentence, but hey, Faulkner made it. All right. So but you want to make sure that, especially with like continuous verbs and things like that, you can replace it, because simple action verbs make the prose feel tighter and keeping the reader engaged. So in a prison of trees. So Thomas is running through the forest. His breath is catching in his voice. It just seems so repetitive, right? Not that it's obviously two things are happening, but because of the comma, even if I wrote Thomas is running through the forest, period. His breath is catching in his throat, period. Like it still doesn't have like a flow to it, but in a prison of trees spread across the darkness, Thomas runs over the hard forest floor, his breath dry in his throat. It has a stronger phrasing to it, as a more direct and powerful element to it. Okay. The other thing is you want to ensure the consistency in tense. So sometimes we can mess that up. So even if I took, let's just do a copy and paste. Whoa, felt weird. Boop. So let's say in a prison of trees spread across the darkness, Thomas ran across the hardened forest floor. His breath dried in his throat. Like that can happen. I mean, I did it up here when I was writing all's closed around Thomas Paine. Right? Yeah. So just the idea, all right? Just me doing this one where it was like, oh, when I first wrote it, I wrote Thomas looked around the room, So you gotta even while you're writing, especially in your first draft, you gotta go back and make sure you're not doing these things as such. Okay. You don't want that. You gotta pay attention to consistency. And just for the record, as a writer, you don't have to have consistency instantly. Writing is a process. Doesn't have to be perfect your first time. Just write what you want to write, and then you got to do the work. Though writing is you got to do the work to be a writer. You got to go back. All right. Now, present tense can definitely work in elevating pacing and helping your events feel tense in real time. Basically, as you revise, you got to focus on tightening the scenes. You got to make sure they have a movement to them. Um, so uh, it's like when you're working through tension. Uh, I have tension here. Right, I could probably build on that tension. In a prison of trees spread across the darkness, Thomas runs over the hard forest floor, his breath dry in his throat. The will of the unknown fast behind him. Right? Okay. Let's see. The will of the unknown fast behind him. Oh. Thuds radiated across. Oh. Heavy stomps. Heavy steps. No closer. No closer. No closer to the edge. Thomas refuse to turn witness the truth of his assailant. No, assailant. His threat. Right. His threat. Right. All right. Anyway, so there's some tension, but it's in real time. It's present tense. The will of the unknown. Okay, so in a prison of trees across the darkness, Thomas runs across. Oh, I can't read. In a prison of trees spread across the darkness, Thomas runs over the hard forest floor, his breath dry in his throat. The will of the unknown fast behind him. Thuds radiate. Oh, radiate. Okay, there you go. There you go. In a prison of trees spread across the darkness, Thomas runs over the hard forest floor, his breath dry in his throat. The will of the unknown fast behind him, thuds radiate out from its heavy steps. No close to the edge, Thomas refused to turn and witness the truth of his threat. By the way, when you do book readings, you're supposed to cut these things up and highlight them. I can't see. Seeing is believing. There you go. I don't know why I keep seeing forest floor as just floor, like forest, but it's called dyslexia. That's what happens. Okay. All right. Anyway. Okay. All right. Let's call it a day. Final thoughts. Present tense is a tool, just like past tense. Okay. And no, they're not really tense in the forest. Present tense is a technique that you do have to practice as much as you have to practice past tense. It's definitely something you got to think about and figure out if it works for you. Is it something you want to use? Is it something that's comfortable to you? I don't really feel comfortable in present tense, but I can write in it. It takes a little work to get my what's wrong with my eyes? But I can write in it. But as all writers, like everything we do, if we do it consistency and we do it a lot, it becomes sort of like our go-to. And it's okay to sometimes play outside of what you're comfortable with so you can continue. Like when I used to play music, I started with jazz and then I went to heavy metal, Black Sabbath, which actually is more like Black Sabbath, right? And then eventually I went to Halloween, we all live in future world, Halloween, grab your mask and don't be late. Oh no, it's masquerade, don't. Yeah, masquerade, grab your mask and don't be late. Jesus. Anyway, so when I was a musician, I started jazz, but then I played around with heavy metal, and then as I got older, I was into like doom metal, and then slowly I became progressive metal. But I still was asked to play with straight rock or blues bands or funk bands or whatever the case. Like, so I always allowed myself to play around within different styles, so I didn't become comfortable, and it influenced my style of playing and writing as well. And I think that would be the same as it would be with anything when it comes to writing. If you stay in one style, you might start finding yourself becoming uh, uh, apathetic or to those other styles. You won't be able to relate or utilize or understand those other styles. So it's good to kind of play around. So when it comes to present tense, it's good to play around. So it does work for helping stories feel very immediate and in the moment. So when you choose in between present and past tense, think about what you want your readers to feel. Are you aiming for urgency and intensity? Not that you can't have either in past tense, but the style in which it is presented is different. It's the feel of it, the organicness of it, and you have to figure out what feels right for you. So experiment with different tenses and try to discover what fits in your unique storytelling voice as an author. It's very important. So ultimately, you got to trust your instincts as a writer. What feels natural is going to feel natural. So do what you got to do. Next video in the series, Flashback, a scene that takes the narrative back in time. How to write proper flashbacks that motivate your narrative forward. All right. Questions. What's your favorite novel written in past tense? And how? Dyslexia. What's your favorite novel written in present tense? And how do you think the tense choice enhances the story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you haven't already, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out. With that, keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you next time. Bye.